Hello, my name is Sahamat Pyakurel, and in this video assignment I'm going to thoroughly assess on the vulnerabilities associated with the smart city infrastructures. Over the years, there has been a focus on the use of computational and networking infrastructures in delivering the urban services. The whole notion of a smart city is to render an extra dimension of support as part to encounter the growing population and simultaneously attain the urban development and services stability. But then again, there has been a paradoxical situation involved in the smart city development, which is the side by side increase in the security concerns. As part of this video assessment, I'll try to cover most of the smart city discussion in relation to CISSP Domain 6, which is the security assessment and testing, parts of which will mostly focus on the subdomain 6.2, that is vulnerability assessment, and we'll later go on and discuss about the subdomain 6.4, which is the key performance and risk indicators as well as the disaster recovery plan associated with the vulnerability possessed by the smart city infrastructure. So before we get into any further discussion about smart city, it is important for us to know that a smart city architecture has roots to the IoT. And by IoT we mean Internet of Things. What exactly is IoT? As the picture suggests, IoT is all about convergence, service, convenience and extra computational airs. This is what makes smart city more worthy of shot because it is all based on IoT. So of all the classifications of IoT platforms, as you can see in the picture, IoT platforms can be broadly categorized into enterprise based, company based, e-government related and business oriented. The smart city infrastructure comes under the e-government based platform, and a generic IoT smart city infrastructure could be as shown in the picture. As the name suggests, this IoT platform comes well under the state development facility and as such has largely classified impact upon the urban development. This is one of the samples of smart city infrastructures which was adapted from one of the literature reviews in the internet. As we can clearly see, there are lots of interconnected systems and different IoT components, starting from different application platforms, management center, cloud facility. These are all centralized to an information integrated center. Now let's move on to the security assessment part of a smart city infrastructure. Speaking of which, there is a need for us to assess the risk measures. I took a firm approach in conducting the assessment. There was a need to assess the risk on a stepwise basis. Thus, the possible threats to the architecture and the extent of their occurrence were identified first. In general, the cyber attacks try to exploit one of the four major vulnerabilities that are central to the smart city architecture. This is what we're going to discuss next. So, the smart city architecture has four threats that have been identified that could be exploited by the attacker. So, these are listed as shown in the slide. So first one is software security and data encryption, then insecure legacy system and poor maintenance. Third one is diverse system with multiple interdependencies, and fourth one is error arising from human and deliberate malfeasance of the disgruntled employees. As part of our security assessment, I have tried to rank the threat in the order that they have an impact upon the smart city infrastructure. So as you can see, the threats have been ranked in the following order as shown in the slide. So next what I did was I dived into a detailed research on how each threat could curtail the smart city development and ranked them as shown in the slide. So the first one was weak software security and data encryption. Research by Carnegie Mellon University in 2004 suggested that there are about 30 possible bugs to be exploited on every 1,000 line of codes. So smart city system being consisted of millions of such lines of code could produce many such pseudo exploits for network viruses and malwares. It was also later found that the smart city system was built with minimum amount of security, and with the help of engines like Sodan search engine, it was possible for any kind of intruder to discover all kinds of digital devices and control systems connected to the internet, many of which had a weak underlying security. Also, it was hard to ensure an end-to-end security due to lack of support of an encrypted system by most low-powered sensors, which had a limited computing power. Then comes the insecure legacy system that has been in the use and the poor ongoing maintenance. It has reportedly been found out that despite being a relatively new technology, the smart city system is layered onto much older infrastructure that relies on software that were built decades ago. So by decades, I mean that was in use like 20 or 30 years ago. They have also found out that this system infrastructure have not been upgraded in recent times or not have been moved or migrated to a newer, much secure system. These systems are thus liable in inheriting the vulnerabilities to the new system, which is also called forever exploits. The problem with the legacy system is also that it is difficult to roll out vulnerability patches for these kind of systems. Next one is the diversity and the multiple interdependencies associated with the smart city infrastructure. It has already been known to us that the smart city designs are typically comprised of large and complex systems. It also means that the system has multiple attack surfaces with multiple interconnected systems. So even if we talk about independent system being secure in their own parts, linking them to another system could potentially open up security risk only guaranteed by weakest link. So the interdependencies also mean that the system is intricate and very hard to upgrade. The interdependencies also have potential to lead to a cascade effect. This kind of effect leads to the connected entities being uh, rapidly transmitting adverse consequences to each other. For example, cyber attack on one of the infrastructures, let's say lighting or electricity, could cascade into urban operating system, which would then cascade into another infrastructure, let's say traffic. So one infrastructure cascades into the other. So one of the major examples of this effect was when the electricity grid in Ukraine was switched off. In the controlling parts were hacked, and the grid was switched off in December 2015. So when that happened, the power supply to 250,000 consumers for several hours was gone. So this is how big the effect can be. So finally, the errors related to the human has been realized, because humans make error too. The technical glitches that sometimes appear in the system are due to human errors mostly. So this includes the employee opening the phishing email either deliberately or without the intention, even when they install antivirus software, or even when they insert data sticks, that could be pen drive or anything like that, in the system. So that could lead to major case of error. So in other cases, appropriate security software is not installed, or is configured incorrectly, or even the manufacturer installed codes are not changed, or the system security is not kept up to date. In addition, criminal hackers are adept at performing social exploits on trusted employees, such as using phishing to release key information. Example could be username or passwords that could facilitate the access. The authenticated access. So the next thing I I did was research about the risk indicators on the smart city infrastructures. So the risk components are the risk components could be underlying system components and SCADA system itself. So the SCADA system is the underlying system support for smart city infrastructure. So every type of smart city solution, such as SCADA, and the system components, also are open to various forms of cyber attack. Also, the wireless accessible signals and the sensors or even the microcontrollers of the IoT, they are full of risks. All essential urban services, including the electricity grid, water supply, and road traffic control, rely on SCADA systems. They are used to control functions and material flows. These systems measure how an infrastructure is performing in real time and enable either automated or human operator intervention to change the settings. So this form a kind of risk because we've already talked about the human related error. So when the human is relied upon in accessing or controlling these kind of systems, there could be any kind of error that could pose us risk. Also, the research research team from University of Michigan managed to hack and manipulate more than 1,000 wireless accessible traffic signal in one city using just a laptop, custom software, and a directional radio transmitter. Also, vehicles that are being used in a smart city infrastructure are being hacked, given that car contains up to like 2,000 sensors connected to around 40 electronic control units and can connect to wireless networks. Some objects some objects are passive and can simply be scanned, such as the smart chips or RFID chips, which is full of information which is either used to access the building or even the transport system. So these, when come into the hand of an attacker, could simply be violated or even breached, and the whole system could be exploited. So how are these risks indicated? So objects used to be passive in the old times. So in the old times, it was not complex, and now what we used to call dumb systems have turned more smart. So these have become more networked and smart in generating informations. Also, they have become more controllable and largely accessible by the remote user, which in itself tends to add up an attack surface. So the key thing is we add up an attack surface, we end up making it more risky. So the security of IoT system is highly variable, meaning the system security as a whole depends upon so many things that it has been hard to realize an easygoing, normal system when we talk about smart city. Besides, the internet provides full resources on how to hack into smart system, which has made it easily exploitable, and all it takes is one provocative object in the whole system to bring the whole system down. Now let's move on to the disaster recovery plan and business continuity. In this part of my assessment, I'm going to talk about how we can either mitigate or prevent the risk that we talked about earlier. So this part consists of securing the smart cities, and I'll try and recommend like I'll try and suggest two ways how we can approach in securing the smart cities. The first is the mitigation approach. So this is a conventional solution approach in securing the smart city systems, and the whole point is to utilize a suite of well-known technical solutions and software security approaches to try and prevent access and to enable restoration in case of breach. So if a compromise occurs, we try so we try to restore the whole system in a mitigational approach. For example, the use of access control can be taken as a mitigational approach, or even the two-stage authentication. Properly maintained firewall could be one, virus malware checkers, end-to-end strong encryption, as well as the sub-procedures to ensure the routine software patching and the ability to respond to urgent updates. So these could be mitigational approach in securing the smart cities. Using these techniques, the aim is to reduce the attack surface as much as possible and to make the system visibly robust and resilient and even quickly recoverable in case of any failure. Where feasible, the system should have built-in redundancy to ensure that if the primary delivery of critical system fails, a secondary system automatically takes its place. Such redundancy might include the use of decentralized cloud-based solution. Even with a strong mitigation strategy and effective enforcement procedures, it is not possible to eradicate all the security vulnerabilities that a smart city may possess. There is therefore a case to be made for considering a preventive approach. In saying that, I think there we need to frame the value around the technology and rethink about the balance between the convenience and the security. There is a case, however, that needs to be made that the potential risks that the network infrastructure pose, plus the cybersecurity management and training costs of ensuring security, outweighs the efficiency and functionality gain promised, and the inconvenience of maintaining the existing technologies. That is why I think air gap technology could offer an alternative as well as an effective method of security. So by air gap we mean physically isolated devices or the networks. So having so why air gap technologies? So having to send a person physically to a component to reactivate it, reconfigure settings, or even repair it might seem costly and burdensome. Therefore, it has to be done remotely. So, in an era of intermittent connectivity, cloud computing, integrated and interoperable systems, as well as remote control, the notion of having an air gap in critical systems might seem counterintuitive. So, it can be an effective method of security that prevents hacking and cascade effects and significantly reduce vulnerabilities. So, to conclude, this is how we assess smart city in relation to domain 6 of as suggested by CISSP, which is the security assessment and testing. We went to discuss on how the smart city could be vulnerable to different kinds of risks, and then we went on to evaluate the risks as well as suggest a business continuity plan that could offer more or less of solution to the risks posed by the smart city system. Thank you.